Hey everyone, and welcome to today. I'm joined by the lovely Charlotte Yorke. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, lovely?
I am fantastic and all the better for speaking to you. Now, would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself? Tell everyone what you do and so
Yeah, for sure. I'm Charlotte Yorke. I am swing and cover Violetta over at Pretty Woman at the moment. It's a lot.
I bet it is. I really, especially at the minute with illness flying all over the place, I bet it's been wild for you.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time because I think as a industry as a whole, we've realized obviously how important covers and swings are to the industry. But funnily enough, I can't speak for all shows, but for our show, we it's mostly been for just general illness. You know, it's
Yeah.
not because of COVID. I think everyone had this kind of idea that, oh, because people are going off with COVID, that's why so many covers and swings are on. But actually, it's always been this way. We've always been there, kind of
This is
making
true.
things tick along.
Yeah, I
So
suppose
yeah, it's
we've all been
pretty
separated as
busy.
well, haven't we? So it's been like everyone's
Yeah,
been at home, there's not been things spreading around. So
yeah.
now everyone is getting ill again. It's
I know. Honestly, I think I know from myself, like from being so kind of, obviously isolated in isolation and quarantine and stuff. And then when I went
yeah.
back into just working during the pandemic, I was working as a nursery school assistant teacher.
Oh,
And like the first week I got back it, like, got into the classroom, I was full of cold throat. It's like my immune system was like, we don't know how to handle this. And I was so ill. But I think that is it. Is that like our bodies are just acclimatizing to being
yeah.
back, being busy and being tired and all of that again. So yeah, it's been a busy time, and I think that I can safely say that seems to be kind of across the board for all the shows in the West End.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our first couple of questions for you today are about your journey as a performer. And the first question is, what is the journey of how you got to where you are today?
Whew, that's a big question.
It is.
So I guess let's go back to when I was 6 years old. And I went to see Cats.
Oh,
That's probably, literally that was the first musical I saw, and I think that's kind of I've been very lucky in the fact that I've always known what I wanted to do.
mm,
I think I'm very lucky in that respect because I know that can kind of take a while for people to figure out what career path they want to go down.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, and for me, yeah, I saw Cats when I was 6, and I remember coming out the theater. I don't like remember it that much, but like this
Mm,
show, but I remember the way it made me feel.
yeah.
I remember coming out of the show and looking up at my mum, and little me being like, what was it? What is that called? What do they do? My mum was like, they're West End performers, and I was like, I'm going to do that one day. And I literally remember everyone around me, like, as you're like kind of cramming to get out of the theater,
Yeah.
uh, everyone looking down, be like, oh, that's so cute.
Mm,
And I was like, I don't know why you're laughing. This is very serious.
yeah.
Um, so that was kind of how I, you know, got started, I suppose. And then, um, we as a family moved out to the States when I was 13. So I went to high school just outside New York City.
Oh,
And I did my undergraduate in musical theatre out there, which, from what I can tell, is a very different experience to training over here because obviously the States is so big,
yeah.
uh, and so much to choose from and so many programs. Um, and I think different focuses in American programs to programs over here from what I've
That's
experienced.
interesting.
Hmm. And they're 4 years long as well, so you have that kind of extra year to, I don't know if it's like hone your craft or just I feel like you have like an extra year to kind of let things settle in a little bit. So yeah, I did that out there, and then in between semesters and years at Millikan, um, I interned in casting offices in New York City.
All
So
right.
I worked at Telsey and Company, who cast kind of pretty much half of Broadway,
Oh,
and commercials and film and TV and all that kind of stuff as well. And then I also worked for Tara Rubin Casting, as an intern for a summer as well, who does kind of the other half of Broadway. So she does most of the Disney shows, the Macintosh shows, um, kind of classical musicals, and then Telsey does the kind of, I guess, more like rock different style of
The
musicals, I
different
suppose.
ones, yeah,
More contemporary, I suppose, like Hamilton, Wicked, Rent, those kinds of things.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so and then I moved back to the UK because pretty much unless you book Broadway straight out of school, it's near impossible to get a visa as a performer over there. So I came back to the UK and I did my master's over here actually because the industry was so different. Um,
it was.
Case in point, I guess, is that in the States, it's rare, um, very, very rare that anyone kind of gets Broadway straight out of graduating.
Mm,
Whereas over here, it's a bit more commonplace that kind of people finish their training and they go straight into the West End.
yeah,
That even that in itself was such a major difference. And having an agent over here is much more important than in the States.
mm,
Um, it's every show across the board is required to have open calls or open equity calls, so EPAs and ECCs. So it's a lot easier to kind of get seen over there, or at least put yourself out there to get in the door. Whereas over here, it is still quite a closed door business.
yeah,
And
it is, yeah,
yeah, so it's funny, like having seen both sides of the pond, I kind of see some things in the States that they do so much better. But then I also do, see some things over here that, we absolutely thrive in as well.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the gist of how I got here. So yeah, I did my master's up at Royal Conservatoire of Scotland,
Oh, right,
and I loved it up there. And then we had our kind of showcase because obviously, like I said, like having an agent is so important
yeah,
in the British industry. And ooh, a charger fell down. And I didn't get any interest at all from my showcase. So yeah, didn't get any, like even a single headshot taken as interest. So I kind of forged my own path a little bit. I was very lucky in that I'd kind of gone to an open call for a cruise, so I had a job lined up for me as soon as I
oh,
graduated.
fab,
Um, yeah, which was really nice. So went on that, paid off student loan, all good. But then yeah, kind of came back and was like, right, the whole plan was to kind of do a course in the UK, get an agent, get the ball rolling, and that didn't happen. So then
mm,
had to kind of reevaluate, figure out how I was going to create my own kind of little path in this. And basically, the way I got my agent, who I'm still with now, is I just harassed her husband, not knowing that they were husband and wife. But basically, her husband was producing Pippin at the Hope Mill Theatre. I was like, I need to be seen for this. I need to be Catherine. I
yes,
need you to see me. To the point where eventually, the night before the auditions at like 10 o'clock at night, he was like, okay, fine, somebody's dropped out. Come in.
just
Can you make
come,
tomorrow? Yeah. And I ended up getting to finals for it, and it was between me and one of the girls. And I didn't end up getting it. However, he did see that I was unrepresented and was like, we'd love to have you on
oh,
our books.
fab, that's
So
awesome,
it all works out in the end. But yeah, it's just kind of, I love sharing that story because I think a lot of times people, especially graduates, get so kind of down about showcase and how well it goes, or if they have the right agent or the best agent or whatever, or compare themselves to others who get, tons of offers. And I think, yes, maybe it takes a little longer, but I've also been able to do so many exciting things in that time until I
oh,
found the
yeah,
agent that I'm with now. And now I'm absolutely loving my life over at Pretty Woman on the West End, literally living the life that I dreamed when I was a kid. So
that's
you
so
don't have to get
awesome.
any.
And I've really loved the insight from both sides of the pond. I think that's really interesting as well that you've experienced both sides. I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
exactly. And I think working in casting on both sides as well, because when I came back, part of my kind of process after getting off my cruise was I came back and worked a little bit in casting over here as well. So I worked for Brillion and Jim Arnold as casting assistants. Um, and yeah, seeing kind of the differences between the way that behind the table works on both sides of the pond. I think it's helped me as an actor and as an artist because
definitely.
it's allowed me to go into rooms knowing that it's not about me, really. Like they want, like as kind of cliche as it is, we often have workshops in school and stuff
Yeah.
with casting directors and such. And when they say that they want you to be the person for the job, like they mean it. That's not just a saying. Like they don't want to be sat there for hours and hours and hours. They want it to be, oh my God, this is it. And that's so exciting.
Yeah.
A really lovely story I remember was from Telsey and Company. I can't remember which actress it was. Oh gosh, she played Natalie in Next to Normal, but she came in for the open call for Wicked, because every Broadway show is required to have one open call every year,
All
at
right.
least at the time, which was a little bit ago now. But she came into the open call for Wicked, and they were like, "She's amazing." Like she came in at the end of the day, just kind of came in off the street and was like, "Are you guys still going?" Um, and she went in, nailed it, and they were like, "You're not right for this, but there's this new show that we've literally just taken on, and we think you'd be perfect for it." And she ended up getting the lead or the cover Natalie in Next to Normal on Broadway, and she'd never done
Wow.
anything, didn't have an agent, like just gorgeous stories where like casting directors find it exciting when there's new talent there, and I think that's so. I don't know. I think it's really great for actors if you can, and if you can afford it, and if you can find a way into the industry, to just to go for it, and give interning a chance, even if it is putting kind of acting on hold for a little bit. If you can do a 3 month
Mm,
kind of work placement or whatever it may be, it's
yeah.
so useful. And the information that you learn there, like now I can go into an audition and be like, cool, it wasn't about me this day. It's just I'm not right for that part, and that's fine.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I suppose it gives you really great insight in that. Um,
Mm.
so a question I have is obviously we were on hold for quite a while. So what's it been like performing again after the pandemic?
Tiring.
I bet.
For both my body and my brain. No, it's been really really lovely. It was really full on, and obviously for us we'd only been open for a month, before we closed for the pandemic. So we'd
No.
kind of only just got the ball rolling and like how it felt to get in the groove of the show, and I'd only been on twice, in that time. So literally, I think I went on stage on the Thursday and then we closed on the Monday.
Oh,
Um, so it was, yeah, literally had just kind of gotten a taste of like, it was my West End debut and stuff. And then it was like screeching halt. Um, so yeah, it's been hard. I'd say honestly, the hardest thing for me just was like vocal stamina.
mm,
Um, it was because I think, I don't know, I worked out during the pandemic, and I was, trying to keep as fit as possible, kind of. But at least I was like trying,
well,
or like
yeah.
going on walks or something, like keeping active anyway. Um, but singing, like, I don't know, I found myself like wanting to sing for reasons as opposed to enjoying practicing for myself, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I think there was a massive pressure on everyone, um, especially everyone who was an actor singer, to put out like content during the pandemic. Um, and I definitely fell into that trap as well. Is that it was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh well, these people are posting all these videos and being creative, and so I should be being creative. And I found that I was singing because I had to sing, because I was like, I had this idea for a mashup or a song or something, so I've got to do it,
Yeah.
as opposed to, do you know what, I just want to have an hour to myself doing a full warm-up and singing because I enjoy it and because I want to.
Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I found that my stamina really wasn't there when I got back, and I found it kind of really difficult to get back into the swing of singing a full out show,
It's a lot,
um,
isn't it?
a week. So yeah, but we got there. It was all like an adjustment,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you that kind of feeling of I guess as swings we never kind of get the opening night, unless something sadly goes wrong for somebody, or if there's injury or illness or whatever. But most of the time, swings don't get the kind of joy of being on stage at opening
No.
night and feeling that. However, this time back, all of us swings kind of came down to the wings just to kind of be there and be part of the company,
Absolutely.
for opening night. And that roar from the crowd was just unlike anything I've ever heard. It was such a
Yeah.
joyous feeling. and such a support that it was really emotional to kind of see how much a show like Pretty Woman really means to people. Because I
Oh
think
yeah.
sometimes, yeah, well, because I think with a show like Pretty Woman, with shows that are either jukebox musicals or movies turn to musicals, I think there can be this kind of, I don't know, rather British bias of, it's not artistic or
Yes.
whatever, but actually get that some theatre is there for pure joy's sake, and that's
Mhm.
okay, and that's a beautiful thing as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, the most artistically invigorating or, makes you stop and think kind of a musical. Actually, after this period of time, people just want to joy back in their lives. And I think that was what was such a gorgeous takeaway from especially those first few weeks. But still now, like every day, seeing people who feel safe enough um, to take a chance and come to the theatre at the moment is just absolute joy, you know?
Absolutely, I bet. So obviously you're a swing. For
Yeah.
people who don't know, what does being a swing entail for you?
So a swing entails knowing every, for us, every female track in the show, and potentially hopping into guys tracks if we need to, kind of learning some extra little bits on the side. Generally, we wouldn't go on for a full male track if
No.
we were that cut in the male section, but there have been times where some of the boys have hopped into the female tracks. It depends what kind of costume stuff we have available, to be honest with you. But we try and make things work as best we can.
Yeah.
Um, so we cover all the female vocal parts, uh, choreography, acting, and singing. There's a lot of kind of roles within our show, within our ensemble, which is really lovely for the ensemble. So it's not so much about kind of knowing which placement to stand in. It's kind of like, oh God, I'm this line here and I'm this song here and things like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, it's kind of just making the show be able to run essentially, with obviously the help and brains from our amazing dance captains, who are the ones who actually have to figure that out, because oftentimes we've been in cut situations. Even this
Yeah.
past weekend, for instance, it was three of us covering four tracks.
Wow.
So it's just kind of chopping and changing and just kind of keeping around the ball, and just, and sometimes, the other night, for instance, that there are things that may slip through the cracks, that we get all the main things covered, but things happen where it's like, oh, actually that's not even. And Tara, who's one of our other swings, was on stage and she was like, this isn't even, I'm going to find a way to go off. On your feet on stage,
I love it.
making things work and making things, kind of chug along. But yeah, we just kind of hop in where we're needed, try and make things work, try and chop and change, and yeah, it keeps
Work
you
very
renting,
hard, I bet.
Yeah,
So how do you keep track of all your tracks, if that makes any sense whatsoever?
yeah. So every swing has a different method, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, I write mine down in a book. So I've got my little, I've got like a little mini notebook that I generally used to take down to the stage. I don't so much anymore, because that you get to a point where you're kind of like,
It's like in your
you
head.
kind of know. Yeah. But it's always upstairs in my dressing room if I am like, what am I doing this number? What number am I meant to be on? But yeah, so I write everything down in terms of kind of at least the bare minimum basics of kind of like, all right, for this bit, you need to be on stage left on the number XYZ, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so that's how I do it. A lot of people have apps on their iPads and they like to note things out
Yeah.
like that, like literally on a stage map. But for me, I don't know, I'm a very old school person. I have to write things down and it goes into my
Yeah.
head. It's like when I have lines as well. So yeah, I typically do that. But again, I would say like one of my friends who's a swing like writes every single note out for every single track that they do, whereas I found that once I'd written out two tracks, because of who those people were beside, I
Just like
could see
opposites and
the rest
things.
of the Yeah, so for me, I kind of wrote out 2 tracks and I was good, and I kind of am okay. But yeah, literally every song has their own little method.
Fab. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
what's the most challenging thing about the show? What do you find is the most challenging thing about the show?
ooh. Um, challenge wise for this show. I mean, the obvious challenge is obviously cut shows. We've had a
Mm.
lot of cut shows. Um, just because it, like I said before, like kind of the nature of the way the show is set up, it's not as easy as kind of cutting, you know, dance couples from numbers, because actually there's lines that need to be said or quick changes that need to be made for certain tracks that are within the ensemble themselves. So I'd say that's probably the most difficult thing with it. And sometimes it's been kind of, um, changing tracks every day. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're doing a scene that opposite the track that you were playing that afternoon. So trying to be like, which one am I in this? We're both wearing the same thing. Um, yeah, I'd say that's probably the most difficult thing. The other thing I would say is kind of getting too comfortable almost, because I think we're at a point
Hmm.
now where we're like, even in a cut show situation like this past week, and it was like, okay, yeah, cool,
All
yeah,
right. Yeah.
we've done all that. Um, but once you start to get comfortable with it, that's when silly mistakes start to happen.
Yeah.
Um, so the other day I was standing in the wing fully ready to go on, and I hadn't put a wig on. And I just was standing with my wig cap, full dress, full earrings, looking amazing, except I didn't have any hair. And Tara just looked at me, she's like, you fancy putting anything on your head? I was like, ran quickly, put it on. Bless the wig department. They were just like, ah. So yes, that's probably a challenge as well. Is me being an absolute space cadet and being like, no, 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 it's fine. I know what I'm doing, and then nearly going on stage without a wig on.
A nice bold entrance to the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm notorious for not changing my shoes as well, because I'll get mostly dressed and then be like, get distracted and having a chat. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I went on for like my full hooker outfit, which usually have these like big hooker boots on to go with it. Yeah, I went on in my nice little courtly lawyer shoes, and I was like walking on stage. I was like, why do my ankles feel so breezy? Oh yeah, no, yeah, not at all. But here we are.
Things happen. Things happen.
Yeah, just continue thinking, Charlotte, is what I always tell myself now.
So obviously you're in the West End with Pretty Woman, but what would be a dream show for you now? What would be a dream show for you to go into?
Dream show would be Mean Girls, 100%. I need that to come over yesterday. Um,
Yes.
and I would like to cover Katie. Is all I'll say on that. That is just an absolute dream. It's the only Broadway show, because I was out rehearsing for a contract in New York for 6 weeks, and I went to see it. And I fell in love with it. It's the only show I've ever seen twice in one week. Like usually I'm like, I don't need to see shows multiple times. Like once I've seen it, I'm like, good. Yeah, I saw it twice in one week, so I just absolutely loved it. So that and Princess Anna in Frozen.
Yes.
Absolutely
Yes.
love. I'm such a Disney nerd. I don't know if you know, me and my
Me
partner,
too. Me
we're
too.
just absolute Disney nuts. So yeah, just being in like that Disney magic would just be like an absolute dream.
Just love a bit of Disney. Can't lie. I mean, get yourself seen when the new Frozen West End casters come in. Get yourself in there.
Fingers crossed. What's your dream show? Dream role?
Ooh.
I'll
Um,
ask the question
why have you done
now.
this to me? You can't do this. Um, I might go with the general one that I always give, and that's Fiero and Wicked.
Yes, love that.
That's that. Then I don't have to think too much about it. That's
Fair enough. I mean, he has such a gorgeous track in that show as well.
yeah,
Kind of just come in every now and again,
exactly,
sing his bits
exactly
off,
my
look
point.
handsome. Honestly, it's great.
Just chills, and that's just, yeah, perfect. So
Mm.
before we jump onto the quiz, there's two last little things. The first one is, what advice would you give to young aspiring performers?
Um, always, always, always be kind. Um, I think that is the be all and end all in
Yeah,
this industry, because at the end of the day, it gets to a point where everyone's talented to a certain degree. And the thing that makes you stand out and the thing that makes you different to others is that you're actually just a good person. And I've seen that happen, like, actually, like, I mean, that's just kind of a generic,
yeah,
kind of phrase, I know, but I've literally seen it happen in casting situations where I was assisting Tara Rubin on the Young Frankenstein tour, in casting the Young Frankenstein
yeah.
tour in the States. And Susan Stroman was there, and she's, absolutely freaking fabulous, like in sweatpants, Chloe heels, sunglasses. And she's like, "You can call me Stro. I'm like, you're a legend. This is amazing." But she was deciding on between two people to play. Is it Inga, the blonde, the lead of Young Frankenstein? I think
Yeah.
it's Inga. Um, and one was like pretty seasoned, had worked quite a lot. One was a fairly recent graduate, like a year or so ago. Hadn't worked massively, but she was like, honestly, from what they did in the room, they are both perfect, and I can't decide who should play it.
Yeah.
And the associate choreographer comes over and turned over the fairly seasoned one's resume and was like, "Oh, I think I know who choreographed this." Literally called him right then and there, and was like, "Right, okay." Apparently, she was absolute nightmare to work with, and that was her out, and that was the other girl in.
Oh,
Like, it was
no
that
way.
quick. And this, fairly kind of unknown actress was suddenly leading a national tour, all because of another girl's reputation. Um, so, like I said, your talent gets you so far, and then it's be kind, and it is look out for others, treat others as you would want to be treated. There's
Absolutely.
just my biggest thing is that it always takes more energy to be unkind than it takes to be
Yeah.
kind. And so, just why would you expend extra energy? It's tiring. This
Who
industry is
has
tiring
that?
enough already.
Exactly, exactly. And finally, summarize Pretty Woman as quick as you can.
Oh my gosh. Um, it's the romantic. It's the classic rom com with a feminist twist. I guess is that it
Yeah.
is what you expect from the movie, but better.
And there you go. And that's why you need to go and see it. That,
Pressure.
that, that's why people need to go get tickets. And then, are you ready for the Pretty Woman quiz of the century?
Oh my god, have I had enough coffee for this today? Right,
You're
let's
the
go.
first person to take this on, so let's see what happens.
Okay.
The first question is nice and difficult, and that is, how many songs are in the original Broadway cast recording?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you
It's
got
quite a
one.
round number. That'll help.
Yeah. I would say it must be. Is it 20?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it?
Woo! First question, nailed it. Now you need to get this one right. When did Pretty Woman officially open on the West End?
It officially opened on March the 6th, 2020. March the 4th, 2020?
March. March.
March 2nd? March
Yeah.
2nd, 2020.
You were there.
I was like, March, it's that first week of March somewhere. All
That,
I
that,
remember
that
is our first Valentine's Day.
yeah. Yeah. So do you know, I'm not gonna give you, you don't have to get the full date, but do you know the year that it opened on Broadway?
Oh, God. Okay, that was 2020. It must have been about 2017? 16?
18.
18. Oh,
Almost,
close.
but you can redeem yourself with these last two questions. It'll be
Okay.
fine. The redeeming is coming. Original Broadway Vivian. Who?
Samantha Fox.
Yeah. And finally, when was the original movie released?
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
it
you
was
don't need to give me a date.
1990.
Yeah.
because it was my birth year, so that's why I always remember it.
Phew. That was a pretty wow, well done.
I'm impressed, actually. I'm very impressed with myself.
Now I need to get someone else from Pretty Woman and tag them with that quiz.
I know, honestly. And they can see if they can
We'll have a
beat
little
me.
Pretty Woman leaderboard and we'll like stick the faces on and everything. I think
Yes, I love it.
that is what we will do. That is on the to-do list. Pretty Woman
Yes.
leaderboard. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for joining me in today's episode. And I want to remind everyone at home to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Go follow Charlotte on social media. Go see Pretty Woman in the West End. And thank you for
Yes.
watching this episode. And I'll see you all in the next one.
Thanks so much.